نعطيك إن شاء الله.
This is a story about the people of Mosul and the slow grinding battle to free them from Islamic State. They are the overnight refugees, quietly fleeing the war and the 2.5 years endured under rule by caliphate. Now wondering what comes next. And these are their liberators, the Iraqi Army's Special Force units upon whom so much now rests. They were children when Saddam was defeated. Now they're at the vanguard of the biggest battle of their lives. Sons of Iraq fighting to reclaim Iraq and the reputation of a force so tarnished by the past. The army which once fled Mosul is back. These elite units trained by the West. If you want to see what the front line against Islamic State in Iraq looks like now, this is it. They've been here since October, going from house to house, forcing their way in, and always with the same question.
هذا الله ينتقم من الدواعش لكل شيء ما خلوا علينا الله يهجم بيكم ان شاء الله. الله يحفظكم ان شاء الله. هلا بيكم.
افتح الباب. افتح الباب.
جيش عراقي جيش عراقي.
الله محييكم. لا تخافين يما لا تخافين ماكو شيء.
لا فيكم احنا.
صعدونا على السطح.
وين ما تروحوا روحوا اخواني انتم.
تعالوا على السطح. حتى الولد فوق البنزين.
Is this shocked relief that the jihadi fighters have finally gone, or the fear of a Sunni confronted by largely Shia soldiers?
جناسيكم.
هذول اثنين ولادي وهذول ولاد اخوي وهذا
بس ايش بهويتي ايش بهويتي ايش
الله لا يجعل.
كانوا هنا يمكم داعش؟ كانوا بالمنطقة داعش؟ داعش
ما موجودين ما بيضربوني ويمشون.
الحمد لله على سلامتك.
الله يسلمك.
احنا اخواتكم واهلكم مو غربة.
الله يفتح.
الحمد لله وش. لا تخافون عمي لا تخافون. لا تخافون.
It is the gentlest of exchanges, but in their midst, an army accused in the past of countless sectarian crimes.
زين هسه يعني زين ما عندي موس كل شيء هذا موس ولا مكينه.
طب جوا طب جوا طب جوا. واللحايه زينوها حجي. لا ما يصير احنا ما نقبلها. واللحايه والله على الواسع.
From beard etiquette to the new rules of the road, civilians can't use their cars.
اليوم ما نروح قربانك وانت على راسي بس مو بيدي.
But as this Lieutenant Mohammed discovers, in Mosul, there are some wily negotiators.
يا اخي لا تخليني بموقف محرج قدام الدنيا بس يا اخي مو بيدي انت بتفهمني بس افهم. هذا مو بيدي هذا مو بيدي اكو اوامر. ايوه ممنوع على الشارع يا اخي ممنوع مو بيدي لو بيدي خليك تطلع.
انت تستعمل معي
يا قربانك يا امه انت
والله نحن ترى مبهدلين يعني
مو بيدي يمه
والله ما شفناه والله شفناكم ما صدقنا والله.
بس انا مو
حسين ما صدقنا
مو بيدي افتهميني الولاء.
This is a conflict where army snipers populate rooftops, principal hunters of the elusive insurgents below. 28-year-old Mustafa, originally from Nasiriyah in southern Iraq, is his unit's sniper-in-chief.
ورا الباب بس مو هنا مو على الشارع.
Identifying insurgents from civilians poses a constant challenge.
أول على هذول. ويا ما عندي سلاح هذاك واحد شوف ما عنده سلاح. مو عوائل؟
عوائل
ايش تسوي له؟
هذا عائل.
اي شاب قاعد ابويل انا هسه.
حيدر وين رئيس حيدر؟
A woman approaches the soldiers, but the fear of suicide bombers is ever present, so they fire a warning shot.
الله يخليك لا تضرب اخاف الله يحفظك لا تضرب.
اشرف
الله يحفظك.
انهي اشرف.
الله يحفظك والله جهاني تعال هذا ابني والله الليل كله قاعد جوا بيتنا على الشارع يخوف الله يحفظك.
صحيح لا احنا ندري بكم عوال ما جينا.
والله حتى على اقتضاء وحتى بس تشوفونا قريبنا يقولوا ماكو حد بيدكم من يضربونا.
لو احنا جايين على موتكم.
هسه راح نظل هنا بالشارع.
لا هسه راح ينزلكم رئيس.
Eventually, she persuades the soldiers to let her and her family in, without any checks.
السلام عليكم.
And once inside, there is one thing above all else she yearns to know.
انتم ما دولة اسلامية ما كل الرجل يقول هذول دولة والله خاف نحكي يضربونا بالله يقتلونا.
ليش راحت الدولة ولا؟
انت من الصبح من الساعة 6 عاد اراقبكم، حتى قال لي رجلي قلت له يابا ما عندهم لحاية قال لي لا.
If she is overwhelmed by this news, Naif, a staff sergeant in this unit, appears slightly overwhelmed by her.
كل شيء ما هذولات يمنا روح هذا المناطق كلها السوق مفتوح الحياة طبيعية كل شيء ماكو لا دولة تقدر ولا هم يحزنون.
As the reality kicks in, it all becomes too much. Taken to a room for first aid, here is Mariam, veil removed.
أنا أظليت بس أراقبكم كل شوية.
فلاجين هاي أم الرسالة
أم مريم. الله يحفظك. والله متنا من الخوف وبالله. لا أنا ما أرجع البيت ما أرجع البيت.
And as they leave over a neighbour's wall, the husband curses the self-declared leader of Islamic State, al-Baghdadi.
الله ينعلك وحق بغدادي نعلة الله عليك بغدادي بركة يا بغدادي.
Mustafa now takes up a new position. His commander Wamir looks on.
سيدي يوم المشكلة ما يعبر مدني ويعبر داعش شلون؟ ما قاعد أتبع أنا على هذا الشيء.
مبين شال سلاح طيح ما شال سلاح ولا أرمي عليه.
On this occasion, no shot is fired.
تعال نشرب شاي.
سرجابة باشي.
For Staff Sergeant Naif, there's a moment to call home.
حبيبي متشغلين حبيبي
And this is what his work looks like. ISIS fighters are a matter of meters away, up that street. They hotwire a car. They think a suicide bomber could be coming.
يلا مدني
Clutch screeching, the white Toyota is taken down the road. For all the high-tech armory, this is how you defend against suicide bombers.
تعال تخير واحد يجي يشوفهم هسه اذا واحد اجى طبل. جيب البوشيه. لا حد يجيني بالبوشيه.
داخل يبلع رفع.
اقف واحد تشوف. لا تسوون هوسه هنا.
Wherever they go, the shadow of an often hidden enemy looms.
يعوف الفراش دروعتهم كلها، حتى انت البس درعك، هسه انا شنو فرقي عنك؟ ليش انا لابس درعي وانت نازع درعك؟ يعني
والله ما يدري
يعني هسه انا وين كنت قابل؟ اجيت تستوي من المطعم؟
ما دخل انا سيدي
لا طالب الواجب لو لا.
And this time the suicide bomber gets close. Very close.
انفجرتنا من هاي الساعتين اجت.
Windows in the soldier's house are shattered by the blast, and on their roof they make a grim discovery.
هذا اللحم مال داعش صار تكه.
تكه من نص.
It is early evening. Mustafa has left his position to help a wounded civilian. In one of Mosul's ubiquitous sniper alleys, all are in danger.
علاوي تعال زلمه من هنا شد خي يضربها بساعه حتى وديه بالدنيا المغرب ترى. المستشفى ودوني. وادي مفتاح عوادي 2 3. باندي. فل العرب وانا فل اياها.
تعال.
Shia soldier helping Sunni civilian.
جيب له مخده علاوي.
Or just one Iraqi helping another.
وين المخده؟
هذا شوف اكو دول ما تنزل لغات مكان اضغط الله ياكم بسلام. على كيفك الله على كيفك. ضمن مع القادم.
ما انت غيرك والله ما عندي غيرك. انت الوحيدة اللي حتخليها ببالك والله. انا غبي واصبر.
While Lieutenant Wamir whispers sweet nothings, downstairs they do a spot of laundry. Some review the day's events. And for Mustafa the sniper, there's time for a brief massage.
مو اصابعك تفرج هذا شعوبك.
On the roof, as night falls in Mosul, others keep watch. This is also the time when Islamic State Radio Dula, likes to broadcast chat shows. This one advertising tomorrow's suicide bombing.
ساعات أبو عمارة في هذه الحياة الدنيا الفانية قد باتت معدودة. يحاول أن يستغل تلك الساعات بتعليم إخوانه لكتاب الله، إخوانه الذين يسيرون على دربه. ولكنه اليوم يحمل هم أمة إسلامية بأكملها، يحمل هما لا تحمله الجبال الشاهقات. كان أبو عمارة عندما يشاهد ما قمنا بتصويره يبتسم ويقول: هل سأشاهد الإصدار وأنا في الجنة؟
And then it begins.
اليمين يمين المدرسة من فوق السطح دا يرمي، من فوق السطح دا يصير رماية. تي 40 ما عنده غير 300 اطلاق هسه حاليا، بس 300. سيدي صحيح، وانا عندي 400 هسه ما رمينا غير 100، الرماية كانت كلها على البيت.
صارت المويه من هاي البيت وهاي البيت المناطق من هنا.
هاي مناطق العمايل؟
صحيح رئيس. والجامعة هاي التعرض.
هاي صارت رمايل؟
طبت علينا البحر خلتنا ننزل.
هذا البيت اللي قدامنا ايش بيه؟ لازم ناخذ هذا البيت ونغطي هذا البيت.
نقطب هذا البيت
ونفتح رصد هناك.
As each street is taken, houses are searched. In this one, recently abandoned by militants, they discover radios and a cache of weapons.
هاي البامبر يشعلها بالنار من هنا واكو جوا مادة C4 او مواد يعني. هاي المشالح اللي كانوا يستخدموها الدواعش.
For those suspected of fighting under the IS banner and the brutalities it brings, justice can be fast and at times rough. Some of these men were ultimately released, the fate of others unclear. But how to detect a jihadist in your midst? One clue, check for a recent trip to the barbers.
شعره سوام زين. سوام زين بابا هذا زيان جديد.
لا مقرطب والله ما
يا سوك مزينيات عرضه.
هذا الولد هسه جيب لك اياه.
خير عليك.
دقيقة صار لك بسجن 5 اشهر. والله دمروني والله وحرموني من اهلي والله.
زين هاي الفلوس من جبت؟
والله ملاتي. هو انت كنت تحط ما
هذا الورقه بجيبه 5 اوراق ومنها 20 مستنسخ 3 جنازه.
US dollars and multiple IDs, often hallmarks here of Islamic State.
والله ما عندي شيء
محمد
سيدي والله ما عندي شيء والله بطول الدواعش والله
التليفون مالته ما فارغ. تليفونه فارغ كل شيء لا رسائل لا مكالمات لا دنيا.
ما اصحى
He was later handed over to their commanders. What happened next, we don't know. Anmar, a first lieutenant, the only high-ranking Sunni soldier in this unit, understands the value of informal street-level intelligence gathering.
هذا البيت كانوا 11 مو 11.
لا مو 11.
شفتوهم وشفتوا تعاملهم. بابا انا متاكد هم اكو بهم ترى طلعوا يلعبوا. انا متاكد كل زين.
يعني هذا ما نعرفه يعني ما قرايب.
انا اللي اعرفه انت اللي يقول بيت ابو ميسر والله ما اعرف.
صح لو ما صح.
كناتير كليتها اعلام مال داعش والعصبه مال داعش وبالتنور الطيني اللي فوق عندهم بالسطح اوراق مال حسبه محسوبه.
والله يا رجل والله الله بكانك فلا نعرف هسه علم الحجر.
As they edge deeper into Mosul and another street is taken, the soldiers relax.
شوف البراءة شوف الحزن مبين على وجهه شوف.
Locals offer tea to the soldiers. Moments of civility in a city immersed in war.
الله يسعدك اليوم علي مهدي. شرع غصك من الريحة يا علي مهدي يا اخوي. الله كريم ان شاء الله. انتهوا خطيه. مهند ابو زاكو. هذا جهاز
احنا انتظار سيدي.
Yes. In the house commandeered by the soldiers, the owners return to collect a few belongings.
الله يخليك. وين منطقة أنت؟
أعظمية.
The soldiers led by Anmar, apologise for the disruption.
حجي أنا ترى قلت له احتمال باكر عقب متحركين ترجعون هنا
لا تاخذون
يعني غراضكم ترجعون هنا بهالبيت
ان شاء الله ان شاء الله هلا بيك
مطور على البيت قلت له احنا بعد يومين متحركين ويرجعون هنا.
الله يخليك والله يابا لو ما انتم يعني لو ما انتم ذبحونا.
اي الحمد لله.
شهادة ما تقول لي
حسن كذب والله كذب ابو حسن
مستحيل ما يدور عليك.
Outside, several civilians want to share with the unit accounts of life under ISIS.
يعني تسمى جايين بحجة الإسلام كان يجي يشيل موبايل يخبر إعدام. آخر فترة مشينا والجقارة قال لي فوت جولة شوف على الكرفان يم جمع الزرق كرفان فوتني عليه جو وجلدني 25 وقال لي جيب غرامة 50,000.
يعني ما فتم احنا ما يعني حتى خطوة رفعناكم عملنا ان شاء الله بجهودكم ان شاء الله.
In all of this, a glimpse of a new future for Iraq, perhaps. But these are fleeting moments. In this enduring struggle, there is an unrelenting threat, such as the father boasting on Radio Dula of having persuaded a son to become suicide bomber.
أنا شجعت على العملية الاستشهادية قلت لك إنه هي الطريق للجنة. هو غسيل دماء يتكلم عليه هو فعلا غسيل دماء بس بإيش؟ بالكتاب والسنة.
توجه رسالة إلى الآباء القاعدين على الجهاد.
الله نصيحة لهم أول شيء اتقوا الله في أنفسهم. وأخوته كمان إن شاء الله يسيروا نفس الطريق بإذن الله.
Next, we hear from the bomber himself, from the sound of his voice, just a child.
إلى الآن قاعدين على الجهاد. صيتك لهم يشوفوك قاعدين على الجهاد.
أسأل الله رب العرش العظيم أن يهديهم. والله يتوبوا إلى الله عز وجل وذهبوا إلى الجهاد.
Then this from the soldiers.
تعال سياح خليني نلحقهم يا معوائل.
For weeks, ISIS had been an almost spectral presence. Now, it is anything but. A suicide bomber has destroyed the unit's Humvee. There were no casualties this time, but there would be in the weeks following filming. Mustafa the sniper, shot in the arm. Mohamed, still in hospital recovering from gunshot wounds. And Mohammed, maimed by a booby-trap device in the recapture of Mosul University. Progress is slow here, but progress it is. The people of Iraq are clawing back their land.
I said, do you understand what will happen if we miscalculate? There will be a huge and tragic loss of life, and the government will fall.
It is difficult to be one of the handful of people who understands what this threat is.
What was frightening for me was the terrorists had a totally new way to conduct an attack.
We realized they had figured out a way to smuggle liquid explosives on passenger airliners.
Airports around the country are in chaos.
This was an armed attack by an opposing enemy force. The short word for that is war.
if this went wrong, you're talking about 2,000 lives in one night.
In 2006, we were only just coming to terms with the fact that we were facing a substantial terrorist threat from within the United Kingdom. It'd only been a year since we'd seen the devastating attacks on the London transport system. And the realisation that here we had in our own backyard residents of the United Kingdom with UK passports mounting attacks on the streets of London.
MI5 and the police needed to work very closely to combat the terrorist threat.
There was a lot more terrorist activity than had been anticipated. Some of them would be people who were involved at the lower level. But then there were others where you could say, this is a serious threat.
The first time I heard the name Ahmed Ali Khan was early in 2006, when he came in on the periphery of another investigation. He was somebody who had associated with people of interest.
Ahmed Ali Khan was already known to MI5. He'd come on the radar because they suspected him of being involved in fundraising for Islamic extremists in Pakistan.
Ahmed Ali Khan was 25 at the time. He was married with a young child. He was well educated. He had a degree in computing. He led a typical life, not necessarily overtly religious. Ahmed Ali Khan progressed as a target in priority when he travelled to Pakistan.
In several plots in the UK, what we have seen is people travelling to Pakistan to camps up in the tribal areas for training there. Khan was somebody who was a fairly frequent traveller to Pakistan. He'd been there several times. We were indeed very suspicious about what he was up to.
I was informed that his visit there had not been for entirely leisure purposes. And he had met people there who gave rise to concern.
Rashid Rauf was British, originally from the West Midlands, and he fled Britain back in 2002 when he was wanted by the police for the murder of his own uncle. Most alarming to us, Rauf was suspected of having strong links within Al-Qaeda. Anyone who has contact personally with Rauf will be under suspicion of potentially being linked to terrorism. That was enough suspicion for us to give 24/7 surveillance against Ali.
Although it sounds very easy to say, keep someone under surveillance 24 hours a day, it's a massive task.
If you went onto the 16th floor at New Scotland Yard, there was a control room there. That surveillance operation, and the many others that are carrying on at the same time, are coordinated and orchestrated from that room. camera aimed on the front door of a suspect means that the surveillance team don't have to be close to the house, which could compromise their position, basically show them out. Ali comes out of his house. That can be alerted to the surveillance team that will be parked up nearby. You need between 8 and 14 people on one surveillance tour of duty. What you want to try and do as best you can is get people with a profile that will just mix in with the general community.
Why are you going to tell me 5 minutes if you know you're going to be longer? Innit? That's what I'm talking about.
People who are subject to the investigation are given code names. In this case, Ali's name was Lion's Roar.
I know I'm going to have to do something because I can't be having this, to be honest, waiting outside in the cold and that. Tell your brother, please. Huh? Anyway, Lion Roar, just turning up Blackwood Street now.
I've one on target.
Surveillance is actually controlled by the target. Where that target goes, who that target meets.
Who is it?
Unknown.
Unknown. When an individual meets another individual, that person comes under assessment as to whether that's going to be a target of value.
Grey team on standby.
Me, I'm not having it no more. I'm not having it from him, really.
They're moving. Opposite directions.
Make him a target. Kilo 1, go after the unknown.
The selection process for terrorist cells is scientific. Ahmed Ali Khan was selected because he was articulate, he was intelligent, he was also charismatic. He could influence others, he could persuade others. Tanveer Hussain was a single man and a father, unemployed. We believe he was educated at university, but he played a pivotal role with Ahmed Ali Khan as his number 2. He was his lieutenant. Umar Islam was a convert. Originally, he had been a Rastafarian. He was slightly older than the others at 28. They were quite ordinary. They had families, they had responsibilities. Most of them didn't have criminal convictions. There wasn't anything different about these individuals from anyone else.
On the 15th of July, Ali met an individual who we hadn't seen before. They went into Lloyd Park in Walthamstow, then lay down on the grass facing each other. Clearly designed to avoid anyone seeing what they were doing, even lip reading from a distance. Something that we've seen is that people who have been trained in Pakistan are trained in counter-surveillance.
It made us understand that actually these were highly trained terrorist professionals.
Mark each exit at the park.
Blue team mark each exit of Lloyd Park.
Delta 2, Delta 3, stay on that unknown.
This individual was identified as Asad Sarwar. He lived in High Wycombe, where he was born. He lived with his parents. He was an unemployed postman, and he had dropped out of university.
Asad Sarwar had only recently returned from a visit to Pakistan. We don't know precisely what he was doing when he was there, but in the context of this investigation, clearly sinister.
We allocated him the code name Rich Food. He was subject to extensive monitoring by us. It was clear from his activity that he was purchasing hydrogen peroxide.
Hydrogen peroxide is a chemical generally utilised by hairdressers or in the hairdressing environment, but over recent years has been seen more and more for its use in the construction of improvised explosives. Most significantly on the attacks on the 7th of July 2005.
We assessed that Asad Sarwar was purchasing the hydrogen peroxide in order to make it into an explosive concentration.
But at that stage, I was told that it was getting serious. We didn't know the plot. We didn't know what it was aimed at. We just knew something's on here. Now that some form of terrorist activity is operational, we have to alert anyone we think would reasonably be regarded as in the loop. And the biggest one, of course, is the United States of America.
Our two nations were so closely linked. If there were bad things brewing in Great Britain, that probably constituted as serious a threat to America domestically and to Americans as if that plot were developing in the United States. Not because we love the British so much, we do, but because the threat was so easily transferable.
We saw the U.S. intelligence community offer its support to help the British.
In what ways do you help?
Well, that gets very classified in a hurry, but when you turn on the U.S. Big intelligence machine, it's pretty great. We have a lot of resources.
Because we're a global service, we have touch points around the planet.
The intelligence services would go to great lengths to make sure that they had some idea of what was being said and what was being passed by internet or telephone messages.
From communications monitoring, we could see Ahmed Ali Khan was in constant communication with Pakistan.
The central strategic direction emanated from Al-Qaeda core, and there was a middleman in between.
Rashid Rauf, the man behind the screen, so to speak, and from whom we believed the plotters in Great Britain were getting advice.
The judgment was that there was a plot underway, that the materials for the bomb were being bought. What we still didn't know is what would the target be?
Was it going to be an attack in public places, crowded places? We'd seen that before. If you look at Al-Qaeda's targeting list, it covers just about everything. Shopping centres, diplomatic premises, public buildings, public transport, any crowded place.
Were we looking at a repeat of 7/7? Were we looking at explosives taken in a rucksack, attacking parts of London? That was part of our initial assessment. Actually, it was going to be far more sophisticated than that.
Which one? There's like 3 aisles. I don't know which one to look in. Huh? What one is it?
Ali was seen by the surveillance officers paying particular attention to soft drinks bottles. Take it back. Especially, he was paying attention to the seal at the top of the bottle. An unusual thing to do, you might think. And certainly it caused us to think very carefully what on earth this could mean.
He began tasking members of his cell to purchase equipment. They were seen on surveillance walking into pharmacies. Asad Sarwar looking at buying citric acid and stating to the shopkeeper that actually it was for his sister for cooking. Tanvir Hussain asking for syringes, and when asked which type, he said the large ones. Whilst we didn't know exactly what they were actually doing, it was clearly not normal activity.
A significant turning point in the investigation came when, for the first time, we saw Ali go to Forest Road in Walthamstow. This was a new property. We hadn't seen it before in the investigation. We didn't know what the significance of it was. But then over time, we saw that several other members of the network were going there on a regular basis as well.
Ahmed Ali Khan and Tanvir Hussain on one occasion left the address with a bag. They were monitored on their route to Lloyd Park, which was nearby. They had walked far enough away from their premises for them to believe that by dumping it in a bin in a park, that it couldn't be traced back to them.
We were asked to make an assessment associated with the recovery of a carrier bag. It appeared that somebody had been hollowing out batteries. Our assessment was they were involved in activity which could be leading to the construction of an improvised explosive device at that address. We didn't know what the device was, what it would look like. We can only make assessments based on what we see.
We needed to get access to the flat, we needed to monitor the flat, we needed to control what was inside the flat and identify what they were doing.
A creep is a covert entry into the property. I was told that you're going to be assisting on this covert operation tonight. Can you assemble a team to assist and support? And I handpicked a number of individuals to assist.
It is a high-risk strategy to enter any premises, to put in a camera and an audio probe. The risk is obviously from individuals, Ahmed Ali Khan, Tanvir Hussain, or anyone who could come in to the address. Clearly, the opportune time is having all of your targets under control and away from the premises.
Richfield arrived home safely, contained and controlled.
Brick buildings under control.
Vision on cold wind, top drawer, and line roar. Stationary control.
Check clearance.
Clear.
Clear. 105205, prepare to go mobile.
The team were nervous. There is a potential for compromise and you're there to minimise it. So it's certainly a nervous activity to be part of.
approaching the corner of Forest Road and Whitman Street.
I've got a visual. Dark jacket, cap.
Who is it?
Unknown.
Confirm visual on targets.
Brick buildings confirmed.
No visual on rich food, but contained.
Line raw confirmed. Cold wind confirmed.
Confirm visual on top drawer.
I've lost vision on top drawer.
Unknown turning into Forest Road towards the direction of the flat.
One 105-205, prepare to go mobile.
Top drawer confirmed.
Control.
Video feeds connected. Video probe in position.
Check clearance for exit.
Clear.
Clear.
Once I knew that the deployment had been successful, then the pressure was off. But the significance of the operation was only known once the creep was complete. And then it was realised how important that premises was. I happened to be in the ops room and was aware that the probe material was being piped into that ops room. There was a degree of excitement. They had two of their subjects in clear picture, standing over a large bin in the middle of that room.
We were beginning to discover what they were doing with these bottles. They were boring a little hole. They were extracting the ingredients through the bottom. They were draining off the ingredients. And they were putting in a substitute. Extremely clever. Extremely simple and extremely clever.
That was the first time, as I was aware, that we knew that that was the method that the terrorists were going to use, and the explosives were going to be injected into those bottles.
The fact that they were decanting drinks bottles, that they were looking at the seals when they were seen on surveillance, gave an indication that they were going to use some form of subterfuge.
Now, why would they go to such extraordinary lengths to avoid inspection and scrutiny if, say, it was for a bus? They weren't going to be examined on a bus. If it was on a train, nobody would examine them on a train. If it was in a public space, they could surely carry in a backpack. So the two places where you might use that to get through such scrutiny were securitized premises or airports.
We had never come across the use of a liquid explosive disguised as a drinks bottle. But from the scientific testing, It's quite clear that it would have been viable and created devastation.
It wasn't a huge bomb, but the place where a small bomb can cause the most enormous damage is in a pressurized air cabin in an airplane.
Very much like popping a balloon, you're using the pressure inside to actually explode outwards.
It's at that stage that the three pieces kind of fall together. Small bomb, hidden through scrutiny, devastating impact, absolute terror.
I received a call from the chief of operations of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center. I knew that he was deadly serious when he said, "You and your deputy must come to see us right away." I've been in the center of many crises across the world over 47 years at CIA. But when I went to talk to the chief of ops, my hair literally stood up on end. We knew that there was a new and innovative way of using liquid explosives, and looking at it technically, the CIA believed it was feasible. It was very eerie. We didn't know exactly what airlines might be targeted. It wasn't at all clear. I was incredibly worried about where this would go.
The 10 most popular places for people, British, holidays that people are going on the walk.
From the audio surveillance in the flat, we heard them talking about favourite holiday destinations in the US.
Miami, Philadelphia, definitely Washington, man. California, I said California, Texas.
We believed this was a first indication of where they were going to undertake an attack.
California, beaches in Los Angeles.
Of all the plots that we have investigated in the UK, this was becoming the most significant. The United Kingdom was going to be used as a launch pad for a direct attack on the United States.
And I got a telephone call from my office on a secure telephone, because I always carried a secure phone, telling me that a particular thread of intelligence being followed by the British authorities had all of a sudden spiked. As soon as I got that briefing, I was in contact with President Bush. From the very beginning, after September 11th, President Bush told everybody, don't let this happen again. And that was, I think, at the forefront of his mind.
I felt very emotional. You really do worry after September the 11th. The beautiful Tuesday morning on 11 September 2001, which will always be looked upon by me as where, I did not contribute to the level I should have against Al-Qaeda core leadership. And we underestimated their capacities for international strike. Never again will we ever underestimate our adversaries.
Because I was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency in a nation at war against terrorism, my moral, legal, professional responsibility was to make sure this never happened again.
Ahmed Ali Khan was reporting back to Pakistan about at what stage he was in making the devices. He sent a text and it basically said that the bat and the bottles are ready, only need the juice. Now the bat was his phrase for the batteries. Clearly the bottles were the drink bottles. But what he needed was the juice, which was the hydrogen peroxide. Pakistan was also directing Asad Sarwar, the main procurer of hydrogen peroxide. Asad Sarwar was in an internet cafe A surveillance operative was looking at what he was typing and recording what it was that he was saying. Asad Sarwar was contacting most of the hydrogen peroxide suppliers in the country.
Quite a lot of the communication was in a very simple form of coded speech. Just talking about Calvin Klein aftershave, for instance, when clearly he's referring to hydrogen peroxide. We knew the hydrogen peroxide was all at High Wycombe with Asad Sarwar. He was the quartermaster, if you like, a central figure in this plot.
Up until now, we knew we had Ali, Sarwar, and 3 or 4 other associates. But it wasn't until we monitored a further conversation that we really understood the full scale of this operation.
We've got 6 people in. Me, Omar B, Adam, Adnan, involved.
It seemed to us they were discussing how many people were going to be involved in this plot. There were a variety of names and nicknames we used.
Adam, Ivo, Parol, Omar B, Wahid. There's another 3 more dudes. Another 3. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 18.
If we think of that number of people being involved in a plot, that gave an indication of the scope of what, and the scale of what it was they wanted to do.
Wow. 4 more months. 1 more month.
And then talked about possibly 1 more. And it seemed that the 1 more, bringing them up to 19, may have had some sort of special significance for them, of course, relating back to the 19 people involved in 9/11.
I certainly felt the pressure personally from a couple of standpoints. First, the responsibility to protect the aviation system ultimately rested with me, at least on the American side. And what made it more complicated was because the president kept it very tightly held, I could only tell 2 other people in my agency, the head of our intelligence, Charlie Allen, and my deputy, Michael Jackson.
I have several hundred officers, but I couldn't tell them anything about this. But we had to bring in Kip Hawley because we had to plan for taking protective measures involving civil aviation.
Charlie Allen said, here is a plot that we're taking very, very seriously. It is of the utmost confidentiality, and you may not talk to anyone about it. This is the highest levels of the UK government and the US government. Here's the punchline, Kip. They're coming after airplanes with liquid bombs. You gotta stop it. There are very limited spaces that you can talk about things like this. At the Department of Homeland Security headquarters, there is a level that is called Top Secret Special Compartmented Information, TSSCI, that is kind of at the top of the totem pole.
We couldn't talk to the airline industry or the airport industry. We literally had to bring less than a handful of people into a room, get a secure laptop, and type up the protocol that was going to change the entire processing for passengers getting on airplanes.
We were deciding whether to ban liquids, to perhaps ban carry-on.
We developed a plan for the president to approve.
The president was out of town, but we have the capability of doing video teleconferencing that's secure.
The president set the tone, which was intense but not uptight. Occasionally, maybe a joke about one of the individuals.
As President Bush would say, this was not our first rodeo. We'd been through plots before. Everybody understood what our responsibility was. There was a great deal of concern that nothing happened that might in any way tip off the plotters and accelerate the plot.
We would initiate these new measures when the British authorities were ready to arrest the plotters in the United Kingdom.
Against Hussein, Ahmed Ali Khan, and Sarwar, there was clear evidence of conspiracy. The difficulty we had is that there were others involved. They had discussed 18 individuals. What we wanted to do was to allow the operation to run to such an extent that we could identify who those individuals were. So it was important that the operation ran.
18.
I remember being briefed by MI5, and they told me, we know this is a big plot, but we do not believe yet we have the threshold of evidence to convict these people, and we would like to wait. It's at this point that I face a dreadful dilemma with a very profound judgment to be made, and it simply is this, that if you go in too early, then it is highly likely that you will not have the threshold of evidence to convict people who may be released and may try this again. If, on the other hand, you wait to get the evidence necessary to reach that threshold of charge and conviction, the greater the risk that they will actually embark on an awful act of terrorism. So that judgment is hugely difficult to make. I can remember thinking about it, and I believe I'm recorded as saying, do you understand what will happen if we miscalculate? There will be a huge and tragic loss of life. And there will be the tragic loss of your job, my job, and the government will fall. Now, go on and do it. I gave the instruction to proceed and take no time, under no illusions about what would happen if we got this wrong.
As this operation developed, the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, he was away on holiday. In fact, I think he was actually staying at Sir Cliff Richard's holiday home in the Bahamas.
Obviously, I kept him informed of what was happening. He recognised the magnitude of it. But other than that, he let us get on with the job.
We needed to extend the surveillance to almost all of their associates.
Over 200 officers were brought into London from around the country who were trained in surveillance.
This is the largest surveillance operation and probably one of the most difficult surveillance operations that's ever been undertaken in the UK. There were 28 surveillance teams, and each team there's an opportunity to compromise another team, especially when targets come together. This type of operation, on the scale it was new to everybody.
As more and more information got accumulated and the outlines of the plan got clearer, I was in regular contact with John Reed.
I already knew Michael Chertoff. I had a great admiration for him. But this wasn't easy to communicate to someone from the United States who, along with many others, had gone through 9/11. We know this is a big plot. We know there's a grave danger, but we need a little more time.
John told me the British police operate under evidential constraints. It's not enough to get information. You have to have information you can act upon.
From Michael Chertoff's point of view, and through him the president, because he would be briefing his president the way I was briefing my Prime Minister, Tony, then if this went wrong for them, the consequences after 9/11 would just be huge. So I knew how they would feel, but we had to ask them, please trust us.
We were sensitive to the concerns of our British partners. The contention we had was not what this was about, not that it was no contention with regard to its seriousness, but simply a dispute, that's probably a fair enough word, but between friends. How long do you let it run before you disrupt it?
As far as we were concerned, we'd let it run for as long as we reasonably could.
But letting it run has a hidden assumption. And the assumption is that you know enough about it, that you know enough about all the players, that there isn't some element of this plot that's actually ahead of the other elements.
John did give me assurance we know where everybody is.
I remember the tenor of the discussion. Have you covered this angle? What do you think of that? Are you sure you know everybody who's involved in it? Are you confident you can do this?
I had a lot of faith in the British government, British officials, but they're human, as we are as well, and there's no guarantee that you're capturing everything.
It's all very well sitting over in America saying, why don't you go and arrest them? But if we take them into custody too early, and there is nothing to charge them with, and we release them, that releases back into the community a danger. That, certainly I remember, created a tension between us.
That tension existed. And as we moved into August, the tension became pretty high.
Ahmed Ali Khan on the 6th of August was under surveillance and he went into an internet cafe. A surveillance operative entered the internet cafe.
Lima 1's got a visual online, Rob.
Lima 1's got visual online, Raw's computer.
Who's he contacting?
Can you see who he's emailing Lima 1?
Not emailing.
What's he looking at?
Flight times. Looks like he's putting together a document. Lion Raw's on his way out. Do you want Lima 1 to target?
No, get on that computer.
Lima 1's recovering the file. Got it.
He cut and pasted and downloaded details of 7 transatlantic flights.
It's at that stage that we begin to realise exactly what's at stake here, and this is very big.
It subsequently became clear when it was looked at that these were flights all leaving at or around the same time, so that actually they would all be in the air at the same time.
They would be brought down when they were ducks in a row over the Atlantic, when the last one had left Britain over the sea, but the first one in the queue had not yet reached land in the United States.
The idea was to do it far enough out over the ocean so that if the word got out that a plane had been blown up, the other planes would not have time to get back to safety.
If it was 7 airliners, you're talking about 2,000 lives.
We had alarm bells going off earlier, but this really pushed the needle into the red. This was an armed attack by an opposing armed enemy force. You know, the short word for that is war. And the objective in war is to kill or capture the enemy and to prevent him from attacking us. The president was aware of this. He knew the danger. Clearly, the view of our government's leadership was, it's time to move.
The preparations were advancing at a pace. The hydrogen peroxide had been bought. Everything was actually in place. So, in theory, this could have happened within days.
Why didn't you just arrest them?
The timing of the arrest was clearly a matter that we'd been thinking of for some time. But there's never a perfect time to make arrests. Some people will always say, can't we just run it a little bit longer, get the extra bit of vital evidence? It's a judgment call in every case. Sadly, in the UK, we've had long experience of making those judgment calls. And I suppose it becomes a little bit a mixture of instinct and also hard evidence.
Let me just be really candid. It's really hard to think up the public diplomacy strategy to say, yes, we're sorry the airliners went down, but we were delaying our disruption of the plot so we could build up evidence that was permissible in court. Right? There's no way to put that press release together.
I think probably if I were to say that this one was a significant operation, she might have been finding herself to do that.
Umar Islam had conversations with Ahmed Ali Khan inside the bomb factory.
Yeah, what, baby? All that? Well, obviously she's got the baby, but that's all.
And the conversation from the probe, as I interpret it, looked as though they were talking about taking their wife and child on the flight.
Maybe, I don't know, man, maybe she'd take them with her. Maybe. You know what I mean? I know her brother needs to do that.
And clearly that's a chilling thing to hear, that individuals are willing to take their children and their wife on a flight that they intend to destroy.
I was based in the operations room at New Scotland Yard. Soon after I arrived in the ops room, I was made aware that Islam and Ali were in the premises that we were watching, which we were referring to as the bomb factory. We couldn't see them, but we could hear wafts of conversation.
When you mention Allah, do that. When you're making a point away. Yeah?
It sounded like Ali was sort of telling or coaching Islam in a very sort of leading way. My colleagues hadn't heard anything similar before. Together we were trying to puzzle out what was actually happening.
Give it a bit of aggression, a bit. Lovely.
It was enough to make us concerned that something untoward was being prepared. I notified the senior investigating officer and the national coordinator of that development.
From the audio surveillance, I had the first indication that they were making suicide videos.
Stand now. This is Umar Islam, the son of Islam. To the people of the world, this is an obligation on me as a Muslim to wage jihad against the kuffar. I say to you disbelievers that as you bomb, you will be bombed. As you kill, you will be killed.
This told us that they were nearing the end of the preparation phase and that the making of the suicide video, sometimes called the living will, was the final stages of what they were preparing to do, and they were preparing to die.
The single fact was this cannot be allowed to happen, and whatever we can do to make it not happen, we need to do, and we need to do now.
We knew that Ali would not go ahead without Rashid Rauf's instructions. Rauf was both the leader and the controller of this plot.
They hadn't had the go-ahead from Pakistan. We knew that that was the state they were at. So there was no immediate need to make arrests on grounds of public safety.
We were at the beginning of the week, and we decided to plan for the arrests on the Friday. There was such a strong connection between Ali and Rauf. If Ali got arrested first, then the likelihood is that Rauf would flee. If Rauf was apprehended first, then there was the threat that Ali could flee and also destroy evidence. So it was really important that we had control over both these events and that they were carefully synchronised.
The pressure I had was significant to do the right thing and to make the right things happen when they should happen. So in early August, I took a trip to Pakistan. And this plot was the subject of conversation between me and our Pakistani counterparts as well.
We'd shared intelligence with the Americans throughout this operation. But nobody told us that anyone from America was going to Pakistan.
So I go to Pakistan, it's a natural thing. Pakistanis are a good partner. They've assisted us on a regular basis. As we get into the room and I speak to my counterpart, Ashfaq Kayani, the head of ISI, we narrow it down from how are you and get acquainted to the terrorism threat, to threats to the West, to Rashid Rauf. I think the ISI appreciated the importance of Rauf. I mean, we had a very good record with the ISI. As we say, taking off the battlefield, Al-Qaeda leadership, if they were foolish enough to be in the settled regions of Pakistan, where Rauf was.
I hadn't had a day or night off because of this for a few nights. And in the Wednesday night, I had a 3-hour interlude, which I was hugely looking forward to, where my beloved Glasgow Celtic was playing Chelsea in London. So I didn't have to leave London, I was about, and I went along and watched the first 45 minutes, and much to my delight, Glasgow Celtic were winning 1-0. Just before half-time, I got a call that said, you may need to come back to the office. 10 minutes later, a very urgent call saying, we are almost certain you'll need to come back. We've sent cars for you. And 5 minutes later, I was told in no uncertain terms, you now have to leave. And we went through London at a pace that I had never gone before and never really want to again. And I was taken straight to the Home Office when they told me that Rashid Rauf, the Pakistani end of the connection, had been arrested by the Pakistan authorities.
Rauf was arrested while I was in Pakistan. All right? I am not claiming, I will not claim cause and effect. I made no demands, but it is a fact that Rashid Rauf was arrested while I was visiting my Pakistani counterpart. And I know, as a fact, that the arrest of Rauf could be viewed as, how would you want to put it, an accelerant to actions that would have to be taken in Great Britain.
I discovered that Rauf had been arrested at about 8 o'clock on the evening of August the 9th, and I was actually in my office at Scotland Yard when I heard that. Not particularly welcome news.
It was quickly realised that this could compromise our operation.
From a personal point of view, I believe that's a breaking of the trust that we had between America and ourselves.
This wasn't a case of the Americans trying to get the Pakistanis to do something for the express purpose of leveraging or blackmailing our British partners. It happened that way. And as I said before, I wasn't unhappy.
If Ali, Sawa, or any of the others got to hear that Rauf had been arrested in Pakistan, we don't know what their reaction would have been.
They could flee, or they could equally detonate their bombs here in the UK before they get arrested.
There was now a critical national emergency. Ahmed Ali Khan was sitting in an internet cafe waiting for a communication from Rashid Rauf in Pakistan.
We realised we probably had a shelf life of 2 or 3 hours before this started to disintegrate.
Having heard that Rauf was arrested, we had to move into what's called the executive action phase. In other words, we had to arrest all the people involved in this as soon as we could.
The day we were told that the arrests were going to occur, the fear was that those people would immediately go to the airport, get on planes, and try to at least salvage some of the plot.
The thing that had to be done from the start was talk to the other authorities around the world to get them to, starting with the next flights out, to ban liquids. One of the concerns that we had was insider help. Did they have somebody working inside a UK airport in any capacity? Because it is part of Al-Qaeda plotting to get help from the inside if they can.
I had a phone call from the DI to say, don't go home. Suddenly, we needed to bring what was a plan being formulated to the fore.
The arrest phase was an adrenaline rush. Yes, it was, because it wasn't pre-planned the way we wanted it. There are 2 rooms running in response to this. The surveillance has an operations room. In another office is a support office, which was set up literally on the night.
It sounds a bit old-fashioned now, but we put whiteboards up there with the names of all the suspects.
We needed to get everybody who was available to the yard as quickly as possible.
Over 300 officers came into Scotland Yard within 2 hours.
It was too busy to think about stress. There's too much to be done.
I was in the operations room. I was instructed to deploy officers and manoeuvre arrest teams into position. The surveillance team leader that was covering Sarwar was reporting that Sarwar was in his car and moving towards London. If I could only arrest one person all night, that person was going to be Sarwar. If he had the explosives, he was in a position to make the attack happen. If I could take him out of the game, then maybe their operation won't work at all. John was available, so I deployed John to arrest Sarwar.
Because of the urgency of the situation, I was told that the next 2 people that walked in through the door, I was to take them up and link in with the surveillance team leader who was following us at Sarwar.
At that time, he was travelling towards Walthamstow.
was a rush from Scotland Yard up to Walthamstow. I had 2 other officers with me. There was a lot of pressure on all of us because there was a lot of radio traffic, a lot of communications, a lot of phones ringing all the time. I was in constant contact with the surveillance team leader.
Ridgefoot is turning left into Walthamstow Town Hall car park.
Walthamstow Town Hall.
Car park has 2 entrances, one on Chingford Road, another on Forest Road.
The fact that Sarwar had travelled from Thames Valley area to East London meant that something significant was going to happen.
Line was mobile.
Lion Raw is turning left into Chandler's Road.
I think he's headed for the town hall.
It seemed a significant point of the operation if the ringleader meets with the quartermaster. It could well be that they were bringing forward or bringing on the attack phase of their operation.
There was confusion because the communication between me and the surveillance team leader was temporarily broken for whatever reason. The last communication I can remember having with the surveillance team leader was that they were in the front of Walthamstow Town Hall and we needed to make that arrest.
I was then faced with the situation. I had my 2 main players together, a golden opportunity to arrest them both. The surveillance officers were present, but actually no arrest team in place. The question was, what do I do?
The coming together of Ahmed Ali Khan and Sarwar was a major event. I walked down to the operations room and instructed that those individuals should be arrested straight away.
Walk up, hands on.
We didn't have arrest teams nearby. The decision was made to send in the surveillance teams to undertake the arrest, which is something we never do, but in these circumstances, it was critical.
Walk up, hands on.
It's quite a heart-stopping moment, to be honest, because the question is everybody safe? Whilst you can monitor and listen to the radio, the truth of the matter is that you're sending people into the unknown.
So I walked over and looked in the boot. Something's going on. You've got the ringleader and the quartermaster, and now there's something in the boot. You know, what is it? There's the risk of explosive material being readily to hand. We're dealing with terrorists. These are people who are desperate, they are committed, they're ruthless.
When we arrived, the surveillance officers had actually stepped out from the shadows. We got out of the car very quickly, ran up towards Sarwar, grabbed hold of him, turned him over, and then told him exactly who we were and the reason for his arrest.
The 2 main players were now out of the game. It was a good start to the evening.
One by one, throughout the night, the suspects were all arrested. Some in the street, some in their homes, some in vehicles. Some people may find this hard to believe. There were no armed police deployed that night. The entire operation was carried out by unarmed officers.
I'm not sure when they set upon it that the police were convinced that they could get everyone. I think as they gradually picked everybody up, it began to dawn on them that this had been a hugely successful overnight operation.
Quite tiring, and certainly I seem to recall that it was 2 days before I got back to bed, but that's what goes with the job.
Breaking news this morning.
Security services are saying a major terrorist plot.
Had this plot been carried out, the loss of life to innocent civilians would have been on an unprecedented scale.
The recent arrests are a stark reminder that this nation is at war with Islamic fascists.
After the arrests, there were some very significant finds when we were conducting searches of houses. In particular, Asad Sawa's house. Hidden in the roof of his garage was a tape, and on that tape there were 5 suicide videos.
This is revenge for the actions of the USA in the Muslim lands and their accomplices, such as the British and the Jews.
We have warned you so many times to get out of that land, leave us alone, but you have persisted in trying to humiliate us, kill us.
It is quite clear to me that Ahmed Ali Khan and all of those who made suicide videos wanted notoriety. They were looking to make this bigger than 9/11.
To all the non-believers, all the non-Muslims, let it be known that you can never win in this war. Never can you win in this war.
Police confirmed that after a van with multiple people, crowded Las Ramblas pedestrianised.
兰布拉是我丈夫回家的必经之地，它就在街上。有个3岁的男孩哈维就倒在这里，和他一个年纪。袭击者在欧洲被养育成人，怎么会对这片土地有如此刻骨的仇恨？恐怖袭击是谁下的令？以谁之名？我是一个欧洲的陌生人。但20年的职业训练，交给我寻找真相。You are the one who turned him into a jihadist, right?
What?
You are the one who justified the violence for him, right? Do you feel any blood on your hands?
Bien sûr, bien sûr.
我奇怪，如此多样的人，怎么会被同一种东西支配 ？Did you wear the suicide bomb vest?
Because I was sure to go paradise.
You know, and then you ask me, how could you, have thought of killing people? It's dehumanizing them.
How many freedom fighters did you?
Oh, hundreds. Not 9/11 attack on Twin Towers, the 20th bomber. We're sitting here. If you are not supporting establishing the Islamic State in God's law, I have to fight you.
狂热者对一个抽象的目标执迷，不惜杀人送死，但他们真的相信他吗 ？Did you follow the rules very strictly? Tell me the truth.
Bien sûr que non. Bien sûr que non.
I was there doing stuff with other guys, and then at the same time believed in committing to acts of terror.
A lot of people are kind of schizophrenic.
It sounds like you're preaching something you don't really believe.
Maybe I never did, or I had doubts.
You lost your reason.
It's really comfortable to be in one ideology. You don't have to think.
放弃自我，切断与正常世界的所有关联，他们只剩下一个新的身份。
Quand j'étais salafi, c'était ce mot étranger.
Which they consider is the core identity of believers. When time is right, it opens the way for jihad.
They get the same objective, to have one caliphate.
Did you have an idea how to build a great country again?
Specifically, no.
No.
None of us did.
一遍遍做同样的事，却期望得到不同的结果，这是爱因斯坦最疯狂的地方。
Your father fought about us, and I'm proud of it.
Did you ever free anyone?
No. In Syria, we made it worse.
加入恐怖组织 ISIS 的4万名外国战士中，欧洲占到6000人，远高于全球国家的平均人数。但是， 恐怖主义针对的不是某个国家、某个种族、某个宗教。这个世界没有孤立的安宁，每一个人都有可能是他的受害者。应该如何识别？如何应对
？What we should do about this ideology?
Expose it as an ideology.
恐怖要靠神秘才能够维持，曝光它，它将会失去所有的控制力，从空中塌落。